Welcome to this video where we're going to be talking about building elevated metro lines. Now, the reason I'm making this video is recently I had a comment about someone asking whether it was actually possible to build them and how they are actually connected up. So I thought what I'll do is I'll make this quick video so that I can illustrate some of the key points of building elevated metro lines and also some of the possible pitfalls that can cause confusion. And it's also worth noting that many of the things I talk about are also related to building the underground lines as well. So what I've done is I've set up two kind of tracks. One is an end-to-end line, which is probably more for connecting two urban centers together. I mean, personally, my preferred option is a circular line like this. And the first thing I want to do is just show you about the process of building. Now, what you'll see is we've got three types of deck bridges here, but these are straight and these will not actually connect. So what you want to do is when you're building, especially in an urban area, is actually use this one here, which is it allows you to curve and bend. Now what I will say is that when you're building these overhead lines, try and make sure that you get the connections to the stations, because the game seems to be a little bit temperamental with some of these connections, and what happens is that when you apply power to them, you find sections won't be powered. And of course, another thing that's very important if you're building metros is trying to retrofit a metro into an existing city is an absolute nightmare. If you just bear in mind that you've got these regularly spaced arches, even an underground metro with the placement of the stations. So if you're planning on using metro, always integrate it as part of your initial city design. Now, just to give you an overview, what we've got here is an elevated section. We've got the stations, and then if I come up to here, we're going to talk a little bit about the basics of an end-to-end line. And one of the key buildings that you will need is it's called an end station. Now, an end stations serve two roles. One is they actually turn the trains around, because the way you've got to think of it is these lines are actual directional. If I click here, what you'll see is that the stations have a directionality. So effectively, unlike train stations where you can run backwards and forwards any direction you want, with the directional metro lines, that is something that's quite important. Also, that these lines are considered separate from the perspective of power. So the end station is quite important when you're running an end-to-end line, because somehow you've got to turn the trains around. The other role that they do for is actually they set up a timing gap. This is the ability to space the trains. The reason for that is that it's very difficult. Well, you can't put signals on elevated sections. Now you can put signals on ground stations, but I would strongly recommend against using signals on a metro system, because of the nature of the fact that it's all interconnected, especially a circular one like this. And if you put them on the underground lines, they're virtually impossible to see and can cause confusion. So when you build metros, don't worry too much about signaling. What you need to do is rely on the end stations. Now what I've set up here is the three ways that you can actually turn the train round, because of course when you get to the end, you've got to turn the train round. As I say, I've mentioned you've got the end connection. You can bring the track round and lay the track round this way, but bear in mind that it's got to be metro track, not electric train track. Electric trains run on normal track. Metro will only run on metro track. That's something it's very important, and I'll talk a little bit more about later on. Now, when I build elevated sections and I don't want to do any timing, this is my preferred option, because the advantage with doing something like this is that you can get roads through that like this. In fact, you could even say you want to put, with a little bit of care, you can actually get power stations, substations, and little bits and pieces, or even maybe a water pumping station. So if you're tight for space and you don't want an end connection, turning around with an elevated section is by far the better option. So we've now got our line set up. Now comes the fun bit. Now, when I'm talking about the next couple of stages, I will be talking about more in the context of realistic mode, because that's the one that can cause a lot of confusion. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do is get the train, the actual track down off of here. So we're going to, because everything we're going to do now is going to happen on the ground, so we do need to get the track down. Now, what we got to have here is three things. Well, obviously, because this is an end-to-end track, we're going to have to put a end station in. Now, to add trains to this, we're going to need a depot. And that can be an ordinary train depot for a reason, which will become power. Now, the next thing we got to do is get power into here as well. And then another point, which if you're building your own track, you've got to be able to connect your construction trains to this. So there's a lot of things that's going to happen here, and this is the reason why you've got to come down into quite a large flat area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the depot end, and what I've done is I've put a power transformer here. And what we're going to do is just going to whack a depot in. I'm going to leave loads and loads of space for explanation purposes. And what we'll do now, when you build a depot, you've got, the way it works is that you've got to get train tracks in to be able to deliver the metro trains to the tracks. So what you've got to do is I'm going to put a double line in for because you need, for a reason which will become apparent later on. The next thing you've got to do is then connect the depot to the metro line. Now to do that, you've actually got to run the metro line out of here like this. What we do is build the metro line here. Now what you can see now is we're bringing power to here, but the power does not pass through buildings. And this is where you can get a little bit of a problem. So what you really need to do, now bear in mind that if you connect your metro station to the main line, it will draw power, but if you're going to have a lot of metro trains running upwards and backwards and forwards, it pays to actually provide them with their own independent power supply. I'm just now going to talk about how you actually put a construction train in. Now, what you've got to do is the construction train, imagine that we've got a construction office over here. What you're going to do is run a line out here. We'll put two lines in just for elegance. If we come through here, now if I bring a line down here, you'll see you can't connect to the metro line, but what you can do is actually connect to the end. Now I want you to watch something. If we do this, what you'll see is that we've now connected the overhead power lines. This is the reason why I actually put in the powered lines, because I know some of you will point out that you don't need power lines for a construction train. But I wanted to do it this way just to show you that by bringing the line round here, we've now got the power connection to here. But the thing you need to be aware of is that these are two separate lines. And because we got a end connector up here, the power does not come back down the opposite way. If we'd used a loop like this, the power would run back down the other way. So it's quite important when you set up metro lines, you need to understand that these are separate. And this is what makes the actual case for the actual construction train. Now, what you can do, if you don't want to put a double line in here, what you can do is, from a construction perspective, is do something like that. And what that will do now is actually give us the power of both sides. But to be honest, what I would suggest is that you actually break the line here. Now, the reason I'm putting it here will become apparent when we put in the end connector. And what we'll do is we'll put in a railroad connector there. We just connect that, and you can see that the power connector can be fed in like that. Now, I'm not going to run the power lines over there, but what you would do is then connect this up to a power grid. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the fact, which is a very easy mistake to make, is if I break this line here like this and then put in the end station in here like this, because I just want because this is one of the easiest traps that they can get you, especially if you, it's something you do need to be aware of as if you're building it. Right. Now, the reason that this is showing that this is all powered is because we've got this transformer here. But what you will see is that this has got no power. So if you imagine if I take this out, and then if I put this in here, like this, like that, what you'll see is that the game is now showing that there is no power. And this is how an unpowered transformer can actually be misleading, because these symbols are from the perspective of a power connection, not the fact that there is actually power in the line. And you can see what's actually happened here now is that the end connector is blocking the power through to here. That also applies if you're going to be laying track, because the track layers will not pass through the end connector. So what I'm going to do is just going to demolish this again, and then we're going to reconnect it again like this. And what you'll find is that will now power up and connect. So the way I prefer to put end connectors in is we can put the ground level station about there, and then you can just bring this in like this. What that does is it gives you the power through and the option to the end connector. Now you don't need to put the end connector to this line back, because effectively when you set the line up you can get it to come in and out of the end connector. Now you don't need to worry about signals, because the game treats the track as unilateral, and this area of the actual will become redundant once you've actually got the trains in. So we've now got the line set up, we've got power running through it. So we've now got all the lines set up and powered. Now the next step, which can cause a lot of confusion, is the fact that, as I've already iterated, metro trains can't travel on ordinary track, and ordinary trains can't travel on metro lanes. Just to illustrate that, I'll just come in here, I'll buy a metro train like that. Now if you click on the metro train here, and the kind of logical thing is to say go to the depot, it will let you do it. But what you'll see is that, and this is where it does catch some people out, it says there is possible because there's no route, simply because effectively the metro train can't run along this line here. So what you've actually got to do is buy a electric locomotive. We'll just buy that. And of course this is something that you will do quite a lot of in realistic mode. You can see it's got the question mark indicating that it's got a problem. And what you do is you send the train to the depot. In fact, well, the other thing I want to show you is that if I buy 2 metro trains like that, so we've now got 2 metro trains in the custom shed. And then if we come to here, up this guy, go to the metro station and go to there, tell it to go. What you see now is the train will run out, and what you should do is pick up both metro trains. So we come here. Yeah, you can see we've now picked up both metro trains, and he will now haul these to the depot. Of course, if you're just playing with non-realistic mode on, you can actually purchase the metro trains directly in the depot, and you don't need to go through this phase. Now, when you set a route up, what you need to do is do the outrun here. Go like this to here. And then you include the end connection. And then you come back to here. Now, when you've got a loop, remember to put the first station in twice, because otherwise it will go around the loop and just bypass the station. And then what you've got to do then is work your way back down the line like this, and this, and then you've got to put the end station on here. If we click that, what you'll see is the metro train will come out, and he will go up here and go charging through here, go all the way up along the line. So what I'll do is just wait for him to come to this end so you can see him going in and turning round. And of course, with the loops, it will just go round automatically. So what you see now is the train will come in here. He will go down the slope and into the end connection. Because remember, the lines are unidirectional. What he will do is, after a delay, he will come out this side and just go all the way back down the line to the other end. That is the basics of setting up an elevated metro line. It also applies to the when we're doing an underground one. So the difference is instead of going up, you go down. It's also possible to actually do a surface level metro station as well. If I come into here, let's just see if I can find the, where is it? Above ground. I think there is a, you can actually build a surface metro station system as well. So it's possible also to build a hybrid system of elevated and surface trains as well. And all you do is just raise the track and lower it according correspondingly. Now, just to finish off, I'm just going to go through the process because, of course, with this, with a loop system, what you've got to do is actually connect through. So the actual way of getting a connection is a little bit more complicated. And so when you're planning the route, what you've got to do is plan this. And I think what we'll do is see if we can curve this down a little bit like this. It comes down like that. So the first thing you got to do when you no, I'm always doing that, is you need to connect these up like this. Now what you need to do in this loop is actually, I nearly made a mistake there. It's very easy to make a mistake, is that you've actually got to put in the end connector on the ground here. So if I put in, so what we got now, ground level end station. So what you've got to do is put the end connector in like that. Oops, wrong. And we'll connect this up here. What you've got is an end connector here, but unlike this one over here, is we can put the power transformer in, because remember, you've got to have the power transformer here, but the difference should be with overlaps of existing construction. These can be a bit temperamental, so what I have to do is come down here. Let me just get these in, and then we're sometimes when these, the problem is that these don't always come all the way to the ground, and they've got to come all the way to the ground to be, oops, I think that's it now. There we are. But what you see here, we've got a broken track. You can see one has gone all the way round, the other one hasn't. That means somewhere in this line we've got a broken track. In here, I think it might be this one. Let me just take this out. This is where you can have some fun. And this can be part of the fun and frustration. But that one, yeah. So even though that one wasn't indicating, that one was the section that's broken. The power line goes all the way round. Now, say for example, you put another, drop the track down here. Let me just show the, like this on a circular track. So say for example, say we put an end connector here, and this is where it can get a little bit murky. So if we come here, just put you there, put you there. And then hook up. Let's done it again. Put this in. Why won't that? Sometimes when these are too close together, they can be a bit of a pain in the neck. If that will do it. Yep. Probably the same over here. If I put these in here, what you see what's happened now is because the power doesn't pass through the end connectors, you've now got separated the line out. So it's very important, and this is particularly true to if you use underground end connectors, that you do need power to every section of the line. Now we can fix that by actually putting in the depot, because of course we've got to recreate this here. And of course if you're going to build this, you're going to need a construction line. So the top tip, especially when building circular tracks like this, is be very careful where you place the end connectors. In fact, what it should really be is down here in a similar way to this, so that it spaces the line out. In fact, truthfully, with a circular line, you only do need really only need one to keep the train spaced. So we're now in a situation now where we actually need the trains to connect to the border, and to ensure that your construction trains can get in both directions, what you've got to do is you need at least one connection going that way and one connection going that way. Because remember now that construction trains can actually back up. So by doing that, that train can go that way and it can also back up that way. Or if you want to be 100% certain, what you can do is, don't know if we're going to be able to just change this a bit. That goes to that one, that one goes to that one. Probably need to take out that bit there. This one can go here. Again, you can put in a very tight Y connection here, because this section of track eventually becomes redundant. And what we've got now is the ability to build track in both directions. And then what you're going to need to do is have exactly the same as before with the train depot here. And then you would basically put up this way here. What I'll do is very quickly run a power line to order. And of course, if you're looking at this, you probably spotted the mistake in the fact that to get this working, we would well, we put the line in that way. That would be the direction that the trains would come in to do the exports. But of course, one thing that you will also need to do is do this. And what you can do is just come out like that, go that round like that. Then you can hook up the, go into there like that, and then, and what that will do is give the connection for the construction train. You've got to remember the construction train can't pass through the border there. And of course there's no power on this side, but if we connected this up with this over here, that, oops, what that will do is then bring the power in on this side. And of course that means that we'll now have power running around all the tracks should we do it. What you've got to remember is when you're setting up a circular metro route, you've got to remember to go round. One goes round that way, and that should be it. Then of course the other one has to go the other way, like that. So just do that, like that, like that, like that. And what you get is the two trains running round in each direction. And this is the reason why, although they're a bit more complicated to set up, especially with respect to the power connectors and things like that, I prefer a circular network, especially underground. Truthfully, if you're going to the expense of building a metro, you might as well let the traffic flow in two directions. The only real reason I would use an end-to-end line is either to connect two cities, because this is a good way of actually moving large numbers of people, especially like if you've got a small town that you can extend to, and you can bring people in for universities. So you can also get them in for culture and other bits. And the other reason I'd do an end-to-end line is if, say, for example, you had a major industrial area here and you really wanted to bring large numbers of people out here, because one advantage with the metros, although they're not fast, let me just show you that just to finish off. We actually come into here and look at the metro. What you'll see is that while they only do, I think the top speed is 70 kilometers an hour, you can move 450 passengers on that one and 328. So they are very much a mass transport system. So if you've got a really big industrial area that needs large numbers of workers, the metro is a pretty good investment. And the same goes if you've got a large city and you want to move people around, because it means that, say, for like if you've got want to build a big university, and I actually demonstrate this in my Seven Crosses series, that you can, if you get well connected up with all the stations covering all the area, people will use the metro to travel to the city centre to go to the university and and cultural business, because if you've got a frequent service in two directions, people will use it. This is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. Any questions, or feel free to chuck it in the description and I'll try and answer them. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.